There's a certain type of man who walks through life completely unaware that he's not as wise as he thinks he is. He argues more than he listens. He blames luck instead of owning his choices. He surrounds himself with people who applaud mediocrity. And he repeats the same mistakes over and over, convinced the world is to blame. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Stupidity isn't about intelligence. It's not about your college degree, your job title, or your IQ score. No, real stupidity is a mindset, a way of thinking, a disease of the ego that clouds judgment, poisons relationships, and keeps a man stuck in the same place year after year while calling it fate. And the most dangerous part? Most men don't even know they've fallen into it. So today, we shine a harsh light on the habits that turn a man into his own worst enemy. This isn't about mocking anyone. It's not about looking down on others. It's about radical self-awareness. It's about stopping the rot before it destroys what you're trying to build, whether that's your career, your family, or your sense of purpose. In the words of Epictetus, it is impossible for a man to begin to learn that which he thinks he already knows. That's the trap we're breaking open today. You may see yourself in some of these signs. That's not weakness, that's growth. The only shame is in refusing to change. So, here's my challenge. Stay until the end. Not because this video is entertaining, but because what you hear today could be the mirror you've been avoiding. And once you see clearly, you can choose differently. Let's begin. Sign number 1. He argues more than he listens. A man who cannot listen is a man who has stopped learning. There's something deeply fragile about the kind of man who treats every conversation like a competition. He's the one who cuts you off mid-sentence, raises his voice when challenged, and turns every discussion into a debate he must win. But here's the truth he won't admit. He's not defending an idea. He's defending his ego. And ego, as the Stoics remind us, is the enemy of wisdom. He doesn't listen to understand, he listens to respond, or worse, he listens just long enough to load his next counterattack. This kind of man isn't searching for truth. He's performing intelligence, confidence, certainty. But underneath it all, insecurity, fear, the desperate need to prove something, even when there's nothing worth proving. Epictetus said it plainly. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Think about that. If you believe you already have the answer, why bother listening? If your identity is built on being the smartest guy in the room, then admitting you're wrong feels like collapse. But the Stoic man doesn't fear being wrong. He welcomes it. Because to him, every correction is a refinement. Every opposing view is an invitation to grow. He understands that the goal isn't to win arguments, it's to become wiser than he was yesterday. Consider a man named Thomas. In his early career, Thomas was quick to debate, loud, sharp, and always ready with a counterpoint. He won meetings, but lost respect. He made noise, but missed insight. It wasn't until a mentor pulled him aside and said, "You talk like you're still trying to prove you belong. Maybe it's time to start listening like you do," that it finally sank in. That was the moment things changed. So here's the Stoic challenge. The next time you feel the urge to jump in, to correct, defend, argue, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this about truth or pride? Because a man who listens deeply commands more respect than one who talks endlessly. And the wisest men? They win something far greater than arguments. They win understanding. Sign number 2. He thinks luck matters more than discipline. The Stoics taught us a timeless truth. Do not waste time debating whether the world is fair. Build yourself strong enough to face it. Because to the Stoic mind, luck is never the cause. It's merely the condition. What truly shapes a man's life is not chance but character, not fortune but effort. You cannot control every outcome, but you can control how hard and how often you show up. Yet the foolish man, the undisciplined mind, refuses this. He chooses the easy story, that life is rigged, that the rich got lucky, that the strong were born that way, that others had the connections, the genetics, the perfect timing. And so he frees himself from responsibility, but also from progress. This mindset is not harmless. It's poison. It steals ambition. It drains energy. It whispers, "Why bother?" And slowly, the man who blames luck becomes the man who never grows. Now picture someone like this. We'll call him Greg. Greg watches his neighbor build a business from scratch. He sees the guy driving a nice truck, taking trips, enjoying a life of independence. Greg scoffs. Must be nice. Probably had family money. What Greg doesn't see: the 10 years that man spent building it, the weekends he worked while others drank beer and watched football, the years of failed attempts before one finally worked. But because Greg believes in luck over labor, he never starts. He stays at the same job, lives paycheck to paycheck, complains, but never changes. To him, discipline is someone else's burden. Luck is his excuse. The Stoics would challenge that. They would say, "Fortune may toss the dice, but it is your hand that plays the game. You may not control every card you're dealt, but you control your discipline, your habits, your choices, your focus. Want to be lucky? Then master the basics. Train your mind. Control your time. Take action, not once but daily, because success is not a lightning strike. It's a fire you feed every day, slowly, steadily, with discipline." And here's the final lesson. If you admire what someone else has, don't resent it. Reverse engineer it. Figure out what it cost, and ask yourself if you're willing to pay the same price. Because in this world, lucky is often just another word for prepared. Sign number 3, he wastes his time on meaningless battles. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow." That single line cuts deep, because what he's saying is this: you have the power right now to do something meaningful. But too often we waste that power on battles that don't matter. The foolish man does exactly that. His time, his energy, his attention, scattered across arguments, gossip, petty rivalries, and online flame wars. He fights to be right, not to be better. He invests hours defending his ego, and not a second improving his life. This is one of the most tragic signs of a stupid man. Not that he lacks intelligence, but that he misuses his focus. You'll find him raging in comment sections, shouting at the TV, obsessing over news cycles, fighting with strangers at the gym over politics, or wasting his weekends arguing about things he'll forget by Monday. Meanwhile, his health declines, his goals collect dust, and his relationships wither in the background. Now let's bring this to life. Imagine a man named Brian. Every evening after work, Brian dives into online debates, Twitter threads, YouTube comment wars, Facebook arguments about who's right, who's wrong, who's woke or brainwashed. It fires him up. He feels productive, but it's an illusion. Nothing in his real life improves. His business idea? Still just a note in his phone. His diet? Still terrible. His marriage? Distant. But he's won 10 arguments this week with strangers who don't know his name. That's not strength. That's distraction disguised as conviction. The Stoics were clear. A wise man picks his battles, and they're usually within. Discipline, clarity, mastery of the self, not strangers' opinions. Life is short, energy is finite, and peace is fragile. So ask yourself, is this worth my energy? Will this matter next week? Am I fighting for something real, or just feeding my ego? Because the wise man fights only when victory means something. The fool fights for noise, and loses what matters most in the process. Sign number 4. He thinks feelings are more important than reality. A man who lets his emotions lead the way is a man who will keep getting lost. There's a dangerous myth floating around modern life. The idea that your feelings are the ultimate compass, that if you're angry, you must react. If you're hurt, you must retaliate. If you're tired, you must give up. But that myth? It's a trap. And too many men fall into it without ever realizing they've handed the wheel of their life to something temporary and unpredictable. Let's be clear. Feelings are not the problem. They're information. Like weather. Storms come and go. Sunshine follows. You don't rebuild your house every time it rains. But the foolish man, he does exactly that. He lets every passing mood become a mandate. Every emotion becomes a command. He doesn't pause to ask, is this helpful? Is this accurate? Is this true? Instead, he reacts. He blows up at his boss because of a slight misunderstanding. He ghosted a friend who didn't text back fast enough. He quit a job because one week felt hard. The result? A life full of regret built on impulses that faded as fast as they came. The Stoics taught that emotion isn't the enemy, but obedience to emotion is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's not a call to suppress. It's a call to lead. Picture a man named Eric. After a rough breakup, he let his emotions dictate every move. He drank to numb the pain, lashed out at friends, avoided responsibilities. He thought he was being authentic, but what he was being was ruled. It wasn't until he started journaling, something the Stoics practiced daily, that he realized his feelings were real, but not reliable. A wise man understands this. Feelings can knock on your door, but they don't get to drive your car. So ask yourself, are you reacting to life or responding to it? Are you letting anger choose your words, letting fear shape your decisions, letting sadness silence your ambition? The man who can feel deeply, but still choose wisely, is the man who cannot be broken by circumstance. Because emotional control isn't about being cold. It's about staying clear when the world gets loud. Sign number 5, he never learns from his mistakes. There's a certain kind of man who lives life like it's a rerun. Same problems, same patterns, same painful outcomes, but never once stopping to ask, why does this keep happening? His business fails. The market was bad. His relationship ends. Women are crazy. He gets fired. My boss never liked me. It's always someone else. Always something else. And that, right there, is the tragedy. He's not unlucky. He's unreflective. The Stoics would call this what it is, not misfortune, but foolishness. Seneca once said, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary." But the man who suffers repeatedly and never learns, he's not just suffering, he's choosing it. You see, wisdom doesn't come from experience alone. It comes from reflection. Anyone can fall into a bad relationship once. But if you keep dating the same type of toxic person over and over, that's no longer bad luck. That's a lack of learning, a refusal to confront your own blind spots. Imagine a man named Ray. Ray has gone bankrupt twice. Each time he blamed bad timing, the economy, or cutthroat clients. But if you look closer, the signs were always there. He refused to budget. He ignored feedback. He never asked for help. Ray didn't have bad fortune. He had a bad habit of ignoring his part in the outcome. The Stoic path demands something different: observation, ownership, and adjustment. After every fall, a Stoic stops and asks, where did I fail? What did I miss? How can I respond better next time? Because if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're not living, you're looping. The wisest men are not those who avoid failure, but those who mine it for wisdom. They treat every setback like a lesson plan, every pain like a teacher. So here's the uncomfortable truth. If you keep stumbling over the same rock, the problem isn't the rock, it's the way you're walking. Ask yourself, what mistakes do you keep repeating? And more importantly, what lesson have you been refusing to learn? Because a man who learns evolves, but a man who doesn't, he becomes his own worst pattern. Sign number 6, he surrounds himself with other stupid people. There's an old saying, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. A foolish man hears that and laughs it off, because to him, comfort matters more than growth. He surrounds himself with people who complain, blame, gossip, and do the bare minimum. They validate his laziness, echo his excuses, and never challenge him to level up. Why? Because being around mediocre people makes him feel safe, unthreatened, superior even. He doesn't want friends who will tell him the hard truths. He wants a cheering squad for his bad habits. But here's what he doesn't realize. Over time, their mindset becomes his own. Their limitations become his ceiling. And one day he wakes up wondering why his life never changed, why he's stuck in the same job, the same relationships, the same tired routine, never realizing that his circle has quietly been dragging him down all along. The Stoics warned us of this. Epictetus said, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." It takes courage to do that, to be the least accomplished person in a room full of high standards, to be challenged, corrected, humbled, because that's what real growth feels like. The wise man doesn't fear being the dumbest in the room. He seeks it out. He wants to be around men who think sharper, live cleaner, and aim higher, because iron sharpens iron, and mediocrity only reinforces itself. Think about the difference between two men. One spends every weekend at bars, complaining about politics with guys who peaked in high school. The other surrounds himself with mentors, builders, readers, people who force him to think, reflect, and take responsibility. Which one do you think grows? Which one do you think 10 years from now will be in a better place? So look around. Do your friends make you better or just more comfortable? If everyone in your circle thinks small, plays small, and acts small, guess where you're headed? The Stoic doesn't fear being uncomfortable. He fears staying the same. And sometimes the first step to a better life is walking away from the one that keeps you average. No one stays foolish forever unless he chooses to. A man doesn't remain stuck because of fate or bad luck. He stays stuck because he refuses to change, because it's easier to defend his ego than to confront his ignorance. But here's the truth. Any man can rise above stupidity if he has the courage to look in the mirror and ask, am I living wisely? Or just repeating the same old mistakes with fancier excuses? Stoicism isn't some abstract philosophy for bookshelves or intellectual debates. It's a manual for real life, a guide for the man who wants to live with clarity, strength, and self-control. It teaches you that while you can't control the world, you can control how you respond to it. Stoicism doesn't tell you to man up in a toxic way. It doesn't tell you to suppress emotion. It teaches you to pause before reacting, to stay grounded in chaos, to protect your energy from pointless conflicts, and most importantly, to take responsibility for your own growth. A wise man isn't someone who's never made a mistake. He's someone who has, who faced it, and who learned. He doesn't blame bad luck. He doesn't repeat his failures. He doesn't let fleeting emotions run his life. And he certainly doesn't surround himself with people who drag him down just to feel safe. So if you recognized yourself in any of the signs we talked about today, good. That doesn't make you weak. It means you're waking up. Because self-awareness is the first step to wisdom. And wisdom is a choice you make, not once, but every single day. So make the choice now. Not to be perfect, but to be better, to be wiser, to be free. If this message struck a chord with you, don't let it end here. Take the next step. Subscribe to the channel for more real-world Stoic wisdom, less theory, more action. Share this video with someone who needs to hear the truth, not comfort. And drop a comment below. I choose wisdom over ego. Let the world know that you're not here to stay blind. You're here to grow. This isn't just a video, it's a wake-up call. Welcome to Stoic Wisdom Daily. Let's get stronger, together.